All right. Good evening and welcome to Candidates Night 2024. I'm Joe Wagner. Candidates for the state legislative districts in which Lyman is located have been invited. That includes Senate District 32, that's Arundel, Biddeford, Hollis, Dayton, and Lyman. House District 136 and House District 140. If you're uncertain exactly in which district you reside, you could go to maine.gov, House Districts, and the maps are located there. All right. For those who are unable to attend this evening due to scheduling difficulties, a subsequent date for another candidates night is being organized. The format and the questions at that event will be the same as tonight. Tonight's event is being broadcast and recorded on YouTube. Please silence all personal communication devices. I would now like to introduce our moderator for this evening, who will explain the format and provide the questions. Michelle Felicetti, thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Before I even read it, I just would like to go left to right if the candidates would like to introduce themselves.
Jason Netto.
Senator Henry Ingwerson, representing District 32.
Michelle Connors, District 136.
Thank you. So your opportunity to vote for the candidate you're choosing will be at the election in November. Tonight's forum will be conducted in a respectful, courteous, and professional manner. The moderator will be deciding factor in matters of conduct and the pertinence of questions. Questions or comments deemed by the moderator to be unprofessional, disrespectful, discourteous, or rude, or irrelevant will not be allowed. Persons exhibiting unprofessional, disrespectful, or discourteous behavior will be given a warning or will be required to leave. Tonight's forum is not a debate. It's an opportunity to hear opinions, ideas, thoughts, and goals, and experiences of those running for office. Tonight is not a session for direct questions of the candidates. However, you will have an opportunity to present questions to the candidates if time does allow. The questions have been developed by the moderator. It was really by the public. We put an email out and said, anyone have questions? And what came in for an email, I just kind of organized and cleaned up a little and passed them on. I was actually really happy with the amount of responses we got from the people of town. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the questions asked, and each candidate will address the moderator when responding. Once all questions have been responded to, the moderator will ask for questions from those present in the audience, time allowing. The members of the audience will present their questions to the moderator, not the candidates. The candidates will not be allowed to question each other. The moderator will present the questions to the candidate that was posed, ask the question be rephrased, or refuse the question altogether if deemed inappropriate. And once all questioning is completed, each candidate will be given, we'll do 3 minutes for the wrap up, to make closing statements, closing remarks. Should be factual, polite, and professional. Closing statements will not be directed at other candidates, individuals, or public officials. So since we went left to right for introductions, we'll do, sorry, right?
That's okay.
For our first question. So question 1, if you were to be elected, what goals, agenda do you have for your time and service?
Okay, and I'm going to try and keep an eye on time too.
Yeah,
So
I can do the time. And
usually I'm quite brief.
we're going to do the best. I mean, some of these
Okay.
questions are probably going to be longer than a 2 minute, and I understand that. There's some of them are a little more meaty. So we'll just kind of wing it. When we hit 2, we'll
Okay.
figure it out from there.
All right, and due to my nature as being a librarian, I'm pretty quiet and short. So, so my name is Michelle Connors. I'm a candidate for House District 136, which includes half of Lyman, also half of Waterboro, and all of Alfred. So as I just mentioned, I'm a librarian by day. I'm a director of Kennebunk Free Library. I've been there for about 9 years. I spent the first 2 years as assistant director. And I've been in libraries about a total of 12 years and in nonprofit leadership for about 15 years. I do like to also mention that I do pay taxes to Lyman because part of my property sits in Lyman, a very small portion, but it doesn't have my house number on it, but my property is split between the two towns. So I live in a 4-generation household in Waterboro. So that includes myself, my husband, our 2 children, my parents, my mom's mom, my grandma, and my sister, and a whole lot of pets. So it's a bit of a crazy place, but we do make it work. So I have my background, my education is an undergraduate degree in, well, it's a Bachelor of Arts in Communications and English with a minor in Political Science. I went to Adelphi University for my undergrad on Long Island. And then I went to Queens College for a master's in library science. And more recently, this spring, I completed my PhD in public policy at the University of Southern Maine. And my dissertation there was digital literacy education in Maine's public libraries. A bit of my volunteering experience, because that kind of varies as well, but I've done things with working with the Animal Refuge League of Greater Portland. I've worked with Special Olympics, the Maine Historical Society, and more recently I've been involved with a few committees with the United Way of Southern Maine. And I've also done a few things with the school district, been on the strategic plan committee for the RSU 57, and I'm now active with my two kids at WES and the PTO there. And so quickly go through how I got here. But so I've been in Maine for about 12 years. I'm originally from New York. I'm sorry. And lived in Florida for a while and headed back to New York for college. I ended up moving to Maine about 12 years ago when my husband transferred for his job in Portland. And after that, my family followed up. It actually worked out where we now all live together because it helped all of each other financially support each other, but also in having kids and needing someone to help watch those kids while my husband and I are working a full-time job. It's been a really great experience. It does come with its challenges, but it's been great. And yeah, that is the really fast forward version on a little bit about me.
All right, thank you so much. So we'll give you guys 3 minutes for intros because I know there's a lot to
Oh,
say.
okay.
So go right ahead. So if you'd like to go next, we're ready.
I want to wait on question one. till-
Yeah, we'll wait a question. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll go ahead and just do
Yeah,
that.
so, hi, everybody. It's great to be here, and thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Joe, for organizing this. I know it was a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. And it's good to see folks here tonight. I'm Senator Henry Ingwerson, and I'm running for re-election to Senate District 32, which I currently represent. That includes an entire town of Lyman, Arundel, Dayton, Hollis, and the whole city of Biddeford. I was elected to serve you in 2022. I currently serve as the Senate Chair of the Agriculture, Conservation, Forestry Committee, and I'm also a member of the Health and Human Services Committee. That's most of my work up there. I previously served in the Maine House of Representatives for part of Lyman and Dayton and my town of Arundel from 2018 to 2020, where I was a member of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. Before that, I was a teacher for 21 years in public school, 4 years in private school. I also served a stint for about 10 years as an excavating contractor. I live in Arundel, where I serve currently on the board of directors for the Arundel Conservation Trust, was the board president for a while, and also serve as a member of the town of Arundel Kennebunk River Remediation Advisory Committee. That committee is no longer in existence. My wife and I are celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary in January. We're beekeepers on our old dairy farm, so that's kind of the rare time when we actually enjoy spending time together and the times when we relax, but that's a common passion of ours. And it's an old dairy farm in Arundel. I have my stepmom, my brother, my half-brother, my half-sister, my daughter, and a couple of good neighbors who live there. And it's a great place, and I have a great life in retirement. And I love doing this work as well. We have 3 daughters, and I have 12 grandkids, and I don't know how that happened, but it happened. And so I like spending a lot of time with them as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much. Ready?
My name's Jason Neto. I am currently a candidate for District 140, which is all of Arundel, half of Lyman, all of Dayton. I currently live in Arundel with my wife and have been there since 2001. I was born and raised in Kennebunk, went through Kennebunk School District. 1999, I went through the Maine Fire Academy, got certified in firefighting, joined the Kennebunk Fire Department. 99 to 2001, I moved to Arundel. We had our first child, Faith. That's my oldest daughter. So I joined the Arundel Fire Department in 2002. Went through EMT school, got my EMT basic. We had our second child, Aiden, who's here tonight, in 2004. Continued with the fire department. I've actually been a firefighter EMT since 1999, so quite a few years. Have a real passion for that. I joined the Arundel School Board in 2006. That was kind of my first political jump. The kids were both in school. the consolidation was starting to happen. Governor Baldacci had mandated that we take the school systems and go from 280 down to 90. So I wanted a voice in that. So I joined the school board so that my voice could be heard. And we ended up joining with Kennebunk, RSU 21 now. I ran for select board in 2009, 2010. It's been 14 years. And I'm currently still on the Arundel Select Board. And that board is rotating chair. So I end up being the chairperson of the Arundel Select Board every 3 years. So I feel like I've been pretty involved in my community since I moved there in 2001. My wife was born and raised in Arundel, so she has roots right to the bedrock in Arundel. But I appreciate you having me here tonight, and I look forward to your vote for District 140.
Thank you so much. And is it okay if I call you by your first name? Is that okay?
Sure.
All right, thank you, because I might struggle with your last name, even though I know you say it. Yeah, all right, thank you. All right, so where we started, we're going to go question one with you first.
Okay.
If anyone needs the question repeated when it's your turn, just let me know. If not, some of these are longer and we'll never read them once unless you need it repeated. And then I can do that, all right? So question one is, if you were to be elected, what goals or agenda do you have for your time in service?
So I've been serving as a state rep and a state senator for 4 years now, and my goals are broad but and simple. My first goal is really to listen to my constituents about their concerns and issue. A lot of what I do is calls from my constituents, not just on issues that they're concerned about, but on problems they're having that need help and need to be solved. And I found that more and more that's the work I do. So whenever I am able to help, I'm not always able to help. I work with constituents on a variety of issues. So listening for me is very important. It's a skill I use with my constituents. It's a skill I use in my leadership in the legislature as well. The other thing is working hard for my constituents when they need help with something that's affecting their lives. I may not always be able to help, but I'll do my darndest to help them try and solve a problem. And I take that listening and that working hard up to Augusta with me. To me, when I look at it, the important work is the work I do in the bipartisan, bicameral committees. I'm chair of the Agriculture Conservation Committee and the Forest and the Health and Human Services Committee. And my work, especially as chair of Ag, is to make sure that all voices are heard and all perspectives are listened to as we work on a bill and get it through. And the goal is to make sure we have a unanimous report on that bill. If we can get support from Republicans, Independents, and Democrats on the bills of concern, it's better for everybody. It's a better bill, and it's better for Mainers. So that's the kind of what I think about and what I bring as goals for my time in service.
Thank you so much.
I'm excited to get to Augusta. I look at it as an exaggerated select board position, and I enjoy being on the select board. I enjoy the community coming to meetings, even though we don't get a big turnout. Listening to problems, creating solutions, working on the board as a group, and realizing that there is a need for help in certain aspects of the community. And we have a great board in Arundel right now, so we work very well together. I really want to get involved in affordable housing because I think that is an avenue that will help not only obviously with the housing market, but if we can decrease the cost in housing, I think it really will have a trickle down effect when it comes to wages. You know, all your money's not going towards mortgages or rent or property taxes. So I really want to get on labor and housing when I get up there. And I think I've been a builder now for 27 years, almost 30 years, / general contracting. So I'm very familiar with the housing industry. And I think when it comes to affordable housing, I think we're going to need a creative approach to combating the problems that we have. And And I really think senior housing should be involved in this discussion. I don't really hear that brought up a lot with affordable housing. Everybody seems to push affordable housing, affordable rent, but I think there really is a need for affordable senior housing, seeing that the demographics have shifted to, the older generations are here and the younger generations are not. So that's really my first agenda when I get to Augusta is bring my expertise in housing and present some creative solutions to the housing market.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do you want me to repeat it? Are you?
I think I'm
You're good?
okay. Yeah, well,
Okay.
I think I have actually, when I prepared notes, had a little bit of answers to both of you. So listening also comes up in my, later in some of my answers as well, but then also kind of, getting situated at the State House, because there's a lot to learn in a very brief period of time before you have to be on it. So that's a really important factor to me, and something that I think I'm pretty well prepared for as it stands with my previous knowledge earning my degree in public policy, but also being present for days where we're advocating for different groups like the Maine Library Association or submitting testimony and just being familiar with other practices. But in general, I have a large passion for education. My degree had a concentration in educational leadership and policy. And I have had many family members active in education. It seems like there's a lot of educators here as well, represented well. And we really need to do more. And it was evident from some of the questions submitted, and I can elaborate a little bit more on those later about education, but in a few realms. But the primary ones for me are supporting educators in the ways they need to, not just, financially, of course, but also protecting them and allowing them to do their jobs, but then also in the education that students are getting and how that plays out for different types of learners. So as that extends to career and technical education and different options and pathways and apprenticeships, things like that, and opportunities. So those are really, when I think, how would I like to impact or really lend my knowledge and expertise, that those are the areas I'm most comfortable in.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Question 2 that was submitted is kind of similar to number 1. So I can read it. If you feel you need to expound more on what you did, we can go there. The question is, why do you want to serve our community as a representative? What do you view as your primary role in serving if elected? And we'll start with Jason on this one.
Yeah, I think question 1 piggybacks this, but
Is there, if you have anything else you'd like to add, that'd be great.
yeah, sure. I'm passionate about Southern Maine. Being born and raised here and raising 2 children here and really wanting to keep my kids in Southern Maine. I'm passionate about making that happen. I think I will bring a younger approach to Augusta. Just a younger voice that might not be heard in every conversation in Augusta. When it comes to education, we're very familiar with how the schools. We actually had the luxury of having kids go through 2 different school systems. At the time when my daughter went through school, she went to one school system, and then my son ended up going to a different school system. So we have that unique dynamic with our family. So I know the importance of education. I know the importance, obviously, of affordable housing, the wages. I just really feel like I can bring a younger approach to conversations up there and maybe think outside the box to get solutions to keep our youth in Maine. I just really look forward to being part of it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, so I had a little bit more of a different answer on this that really went back to that listening piece before that Henry was talking about. But I also feel entertained, just a quick little story about how I actually got involved in running was this past winter. I was trying to figure out, I knew I was coming to the end of writing my dissertation, and I knew I don't like to have too much free time on my hands. So I started to sign up for some volunteering opportunities, made some small donations, and filled out some surveys just to kind of feel like how would I like to get involved? And somehow that put me on the radar where I was soon after asked if I wanted to run for House District 136. And I could tell you that was not on my mind at all. Being politically active, certainly, being active in my community and working with organizations behind the scenes at the policy level, something I really like to do, but being the face of that was just something I just never even thought of. And then someone asked me. So I ended up talking to my husband after a little bit. I had these conversations first when I got calls from people asking me if I wanted to serve before I even talked to my husband, because again, it wasn't something I was thinking of. And he said, go for it. And then I was like, okay, my board's going to think this is something I can't do while I'm working a full-time job. And they fully supported me, as they did through my PhD, and then as well as my staff, which is important buy-in as well. But also important along the way is that they reminded me that what I'm doing in my day job and how I work and facilitate discussions, and I work with different community members really across several towns and organizations throughout the state, is really exactly what I should be bringing to the State House. So that was really, what really led me to thinking that I could do this. I could serve, and I know I could serve well. And I think the primary role is to listen and bring my community's voices to the State House and be an advocate for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm going to go back to the time when I first decided to run. I was thinking about taking an early retirement of teaching after 25 years in private and public schools. And I started to think about running for office because I wanted to stay involved in my community and make a difference in the quality of life for my wife, my 3 daughters, and all of my 12 grandchildren. I was really looking at it through the lens of my family and seeing the difficulties they had as teachers in public school, but also my grandkids as students. And I could see that our schools really needed work and really needed a lot of help. And I was hoping that politics was not the dirty word that people think of it, but it actually could be a force for some positive change. So I looked at my wife's and my own experiences with the healthcare system. My wife and I are both retired. We're on Medicare. And I could see that, we need to have quality, affordable healthcare for everybody in Maine. And that makes sense to me. And that was hoping I could make a difference with that kind of work. I saw that my own and now my kids, who luckily have homes, they see their property taxes are high, and that housing is no longer in reach for most people. It won't be in reach for my grandkids if something isn't done. And I want them to stay in Maine. And so for me, it began as a personal thing. And then when I got up to Augusta and started to do the work after the crazy initial period of trying to figure out what was going on up there, I started to see that you can make a difference. There's things you can do, and it takes hard work. It takes listening to people. It takes compromise. And it's not all about what your party always wants. It's about what's important for your constituents as well, and how you're going to get that work done. So that's why I'm in it, and I hope to stay.
Thank you so much. All right, so we're on to question 3. Maine businesses are finding it increasingly more difficult to not only hire but retain workers due to lack of housing and high cost of living, high taxes, the cost of housing, the inability to find and keep workers. The 1% payroll tax is due to be implemented next year for the paid family leave program. Maine is now ranked as the 3rd highest tax state in the nation, with the 10th highest income tax. So with high taxes, the cost of housing, the inability to find and keep workers, how are businesses to keep going? How are we to attract people to Maine if we can't offer affordable wages and affordable housing? And that one is going to Michelle's first, yes.
Okay, so for that question, I really focused in on how is that going to attract key people in Maine, and I really think that's exactly what it's going to do. I have a similar program I've been working with at the library with my employees. There's a policy we have for our handbook, and it's very similar to paid family leave. That we're a nonprofit organization, so we don't have to follow federal policy, but we created our own to enable our employees to be able to take the time they needed for whatever reason. And this has been active more than the 9 years that I've been there. But basically, it's a stand-in. So if you need to go on paternity, maternity leave, if there's illness in the family, if there's a long sickness that you're dealing with, it's a security net that people need, and it's something that keeps up staff morale, and they know it's there, and they know that their employer has their back. I have a great work environment that I work in that where people feel that comfort level. And I could say that in the 9 years that I've been working at my library, I'm the worst offender of the leave because it had two maternity leaves. We've had people that have had to go out for reasons such as, receiving long-term cancer care. But it's never something, my personal experience is both as a director of a library, but also, working with directors across the state of different libraries and also different nonprofits. It's not something that we come across as an issue with abuse. It's there. It's helped. It's one of those things that we list when we list benefits. It's at the top of that list where what people are looking for. It's very different when people are scanning through job descriptions now. They're going right to those benefits and they're seeing maybe different reasons. But is there going to be a hybrid work environment? Am I going to have flexibility to do things? There's different priorities, and that family medical leave is very important to people. And I think it's great for retention.
Thank you so much. Do you want me to repeat it? Are you?
I think
you
you got
just
it.
said-
Sure,
okay.
there's a couple
All right,
questions
go
in
for
there.
it. Yes.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about taxes later because I know we're going to talk a lot about property taxes, so I'd save that. So I just want to address the piece about keeping and attracting workers and helping businesses to keep going. First of all, I just want to mention a little bit about paid family medical leave program, which I researched really strongly when I was up there and it was being formed. And it's been modified a lot to satisfy businesses a lot better. And it's gotten some tweaks and it's definitely going to be instituted, I believe, in 2026. It's an insurance program. It's not an entitlement. And it's not a tax. It's an insurance program that's been shown around the world to help attract and retain workers for companies. If they've got some kind of an insurance program that'll support them so that they can take time out to look after kids, family members, and seniors and grandparents, that's going to keep them in the workforce. It's going to strengthen our economy. It's going to set us on a path for better health and well-being in the state. That's how I strongly feel. It's not, like I said, it's not only going to help younger working families, but it's going to benefit our aging population as well. And I'm getting there. And I more and more rely on working family members, younger members of my family, to be able to take time off work in the future to hopefully take care of me. We know that senior housing, healthcare, nursing homes for seniors is a tough go. It's one of the big problems in the state. So I think that paid family medical leave hopefully will help that. Given saying that, I think that affordable workforce housing is really, really important in attracting and retaining not just workers to the state, but our kids to stay, our grandkids to stay in the state. The business community and workers, there's no disagreement on this. A couple of bills that are there, a couple of policies that have been put in that I think will be helpful are a first-time homeowners program that gives $10,000 for a down payment on a home that'll help our working Mainers, teachers, firefighters, and other working Mainers to stay and work here. There's a Maine State Housing Program that gives subsidies to developers to include affordable housing. That's another program. I supported them both in the last session, but make no doubt about it, more needs to be done. I mean, we're in a crisis now with making sure we can retain workforce. And then briefly, I just want to talk a little bit about how I feel like these are big problems and the federal government needs to step in and we need to partner with the federal government in this. And hopefully that'll be happening. A couple of programs I wanted to highlight. I just found out today the Maine Department of Agriculture is offering help to business to fill out USDA equipment grant opportunities to be able to, for processing, shipping, and packaging those products they make on the farm, grants to help with equipment and to get them up and going. That's called a middle of the supply food chain operation. What's that?
You're at 3 minutes, but go ahead and take another.
Okay, and then the only thing there's another program that I was really proud to be part of, which is a job training program from the Governor's Energy Office for Biddeford Adult Ed. They got a $300,000 grant to develop a curriculum and to train 70 adults in energy efficiency jobs. And they're much needed, like installing heat pumps. And those will be better paying jobs than a lot of adults are getting now. So we need to think about retraining adults as well and have money that's available that partners the feds and the state to make a good return on investment. So that's, thank you for that. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much. Appreciate it. Do you want me to repeat the question or? you good?
No, I should be all set. Thank
Okay,
you.
Wonderful.
I want to touch a little bit on what Michelle started with as far as this gives us a great bargaining chip to attract and retain the workforce. I think this paid family leave program is going to help, especially in my industry, the construction industry. What we find in the construction industry is, we might capture a large workforce on a particular project or a particular part of a project, but the next contractor in line might be offering $1, $2 more an hour. And that's the workforce looks at that like a benefit, meaning, if I can make $2 more an hour in a 40-hour week and put that in my pocket, well, if I get hurt, if someone gets sick, I can take that extra money that I'm making at that next contractor in line and maybe take a few days off to recover or do whatever. So I think this might level the playing field a little bit, especially in my industry. If this is something we can offer, we might not lose short-term workforce as fast in the construction industry, if that makes any sense. I think it's funny to see the workforce, the starting wages on workforce now have skyrocketed, and yet these new workers just can't afford to live, because of housing costs and food costs and fuel costs. So again, I think this is going to be a great bargaining chip for us as employers to offer the employees, and I support it 100%. And I appreciate you, Henry, for touching on that bill and elaborating a little bit, because I know there was some confusion there when that first landed, and not everybody was familiar. Yeah, so I appreciate that. Thanks.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. All right, so we're on to question 4. 4 and 5 are a little similar, but we'll do them both. Party lines. Do you believe in voting party lines? If so, why? If not, why? And we're going.
Okay, thank you. No, I do at times vote party lines, but I vote for policies that I believe benefit the people of my district and the people of Maine. I think what really proves this is my work as Senate Chair of the Agriculture, Conservation, Forestry Committee. A large majority of the bills that came out of that committee after long discussions were unanimous bills. That was the goal. Bipartisan bills that had the support of Republicans. I had the support of an independent who I share the chair with, and all Dems. And my work with the Health and Human Services Committee was similar. We had many unanimous bills passed. That's the goal of my work, because I think when we can get bipartisan bills passed that are mostly unanimous, they're better bills. They're well thought out. They represent more of the people of Maine. And so when I'm in committee, I represent the people of Maine, and including my constituents.
Thank you so much. Jason, you next.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of just strictly going to Augusta and voting on my party line. I recognize myself as a Democrat. I'm going to go up there with the Democrat agenda, because I feel that's a better fit for me. I like their approach to, government working at every level for all Maine people. I like their approach on affordable and accessible healthcare, strong schools, climate initiatives. Don't get me wrong, I like their agenda, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the other side of the aisle doesn't have equal or better approach to a certain bill. So I have no problem at all going across the aisle and supporting, if it means it's best for Maine people. So I look at myself as a voter for the people. And I feel like we've proven that on the select board. We're not all made up of all Democrats, all Republicans. So we continuously vote with each other, and really 99.9% of the time it's a unanimous decision across the board. But that means sitting down, having a discussion, looking at all the facts, laying them all out. How is this going to represent the town of Arundel to its best potential for as many possible voters as possible, taxpayers. So yeah, I am not going up there strictly to vote for my party.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so very much similar answers. So I'll just elaborate a little bit more. So I don't have the Senate experience or the experience from the select board, but as being a library director and also being a division head, and for those of you who don't know, Kennebunk Free Library Services, both the towns of Kennebunk and Arundel. So it's a service population of just over 16,000 people. And I've not interacted with every single one of those 16,000 people, but over the years I've interacted with many. And I could tell you right across that I do not ever make a decision that always pleases everyone. I try and go with, what's best, what's best based on the merit of it, and what makes sense at the time. There's a lot of decision making during the COVID timeframe where, I had to, make decisions that, displease sometimes both sides, and that's never easy either. But I think it's dangerous to, and that's not what we're voted in to go up and do, is to vote party lines. We're voted up to go and look at a bill and to make a decision.
Thank you so much. All right, question 5. Do you believe in voting what your constituents, let me see this right. Do you believe in voting what your constituency asks you to vote, even if it goes against party lines and against your belief on how to vote? If so, why? If not, why? And Jason, you start with that one.
My wife might laugh at this, but I've learned that my vision isn't always the right vision. And she's taught me that. So I am 100% going to Augusta with an open mind. I want to educate myself on every possible bill that lands in my lap, every possible debate that comes to me. I don't necessarily believe that I need to side with the party up there, and I really strongly feel that if I'm presented with references and factual information and an approach that's a better option than what might be instilled in my own mind, I don't have a problem going against party lines and voting the way that, kind of like I described in the previous question. I really want to make this about the Maine people. So yeah.
Thank you. All right, Michelle, you're next. Do you need me to repeat it? Or you good?
No, I think because it's kind of going off of the
Okay,
same
sure.
question from
Okay.
before too. But so as representation goes, there was a unique experience. Well, maybe it's not unique. Maybe everyone experiences it when they're knocking on doors and canvassing. But again, to conversations with residents, and what I find that was really nice is you're talking about issues. People aren't. It was almost never. That was maybe a couple times out of hundreds of doors at this point, to thousands, that people said, "What party are you with?" People don't ask that question. They ask you questions about issues, and they tell you about what they're concerned with. And I think that's something really important to think of it when you're representing one side or the other. But when you're person to person, you just have a problem you want solved. And it was very in my decision to even just publish, material like my palm cards information. I made a decision to go with RSU 57 colors because it's community based. I don't want it to be one side or the other. It's very much like how are we supporting each other?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So when I think about this, I think that this may be a secret, so don't tell anybody, but sometimes my own party fights as much as fighting with the other folks. So the Democratic Party is a really broad tent. It's got very progressive views, very conservative views, and it's a large tent. It's got a platform, which I agree with. But really, when I consider how I'm going to vote, I first think, number one, I think about my constituents. I want to know how they feel. I'm pretty honest about where I'm currently standing, what my conscience and what my belief says about this particular policy, but I'm open to listening. I'll try to get back to constituents when they're concerned about an issue, especially if they send me a personal note. If it's a form note that I'm getting 30 or 40 of in a day over a contentious issue, I have a really hard time responding to that. The temptation is for me to write a form letter and send it out, but I don't like to do that. So if I personally hear from you, I know the issue matters from you, and I'll try and do my best to get back to you. Most of the time, I've been pretty good at that. So I think about constituents first. I think about my own beliefs, where I stand on an issue second, and my mind has been changed by constituents. My mind has been changed by my partner on certain bills. And then I think, I consider the party, because the party definitely caucuses and has their views on the bill, but we're always told, vote how you believe, vote how your constituents really stand on this issue as well. So the party knows that we're beholding to the people that voted us in. First of all,
Thank you so much. This is gonna be a long one, I'm reading number 6, and then Michelle, you're gonna be, this is
Okay.
yours. So sunsetted property tax freeze. There has been discussion in the news lately that there may be new bills proposed to reconsider the senior property tax freeze program. What will your effort be to that, if elected, to help middle-income seniors offset the ever-increasing property tax and allow us to remain in our homes? Instead of increasing the property tax fairness credit and property tax deferral program, why wasn't an income tax cap? Why wasn't an income tax cap that seemed to be the big reason to sunsetting the freeze considered for property tax freeze first? As I hope you are aware, neither of the programs given to seniors on fixed incomes helped middle-income seniors who are struggling with increased bills. The fairness credit only helped those receiving the bare minimum SSI income. The latter, if used, actually leaves the responsibility to our children with a larger interest payment tacked on. Did anyone in Augusta do the math? As an example, using the worksheet for the fairness credit, a senior could only make $5,000 a year, $416 a month, and have a $2,000 tax bill to receive the max $2,000 credit. With a minimum SSI payment at $943 a month, or $11,316 per year, an even larger tax bill is required to receive the $2,000 credit. Seniors making considerably less probably don't own a home or even pay property taxes. That increase did nothing to help most seniors. If reintroduced, would you be considering a reasonable cap based on the middle-class senior income and cost of living if you were discussing the new freeze bill? And then they just have something they quoted here. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the average cost of living in Maine is a bit over $50,000 per year.
So a lot there, yeah. But a few questions, so I'll try and address maybe one. But I do, as someone who hasn't yet served, I do often have this, and I appreciate the question. Has anyone in Augusta done the math? Because with LD 290, there was often, as being, kind of the outsider sitting in the room with the tax assessors talking about LD 290, which I'm pretty sure is the bill mostly referenced here. It's like, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, it's flat across the board. The way my approach to many situations, and if we're re-looking at that bill to see what works better, is, making that cap, making that cutoff, or putting it in stages, or how it might be that for those that are making above a certain income, they may not qualify it. Or if you're making below a certain amount, it's level to what your income's at. And this way, it's not just all of a sudden, like now I believe, this upcoming tax year, it stops. So there's people are feeling that impact. And there's people that had joined into the program because they had just said, why not? It's all open to me, I'll do it. I don't think they have ill intent, but I think the intent of it was to really service the people that really needed it. But they didn't make that, they either assumed or didn't make it very clear. So I believe that really making some kind of cap or keeping it to just certain populations, the ones that really need that help right now, is the best approach to that. But that's also given that I don't have as much of a background in the bill and really the intent behind it.
Thank you.
I have a little more time so I can answer each of those.
You sure
I think
can.
there's 4 or 5
yes.
questions in
We'll
there.
do it in 3 and then
So
we'll
really-
hear it and go for it.
This is about the really high property taxes that people are paying. It's really what it's about, especially people on fixed income and low income. I'm one of those guys. Property taxes are high. As a lawmaker, I know I need to do more, and I know it ain't over. We've done some things. I'm a senior on fixed income, and a tax bill arrived from Arundel a couple of weeks ago in my door. I was glad to see that it hadn't gone up at all. Well, how do you do that? But I know that people are facing reassessments. I know that cost of education continues to go up, so it's really hard. So I'd consider any legislation that's fair and sensible and sustainable that helps. Sustainable is the thing. It helps low to middle income seniors be able to stay in their house. The problem with LD 290, it was a great idea. I loved it. I went around and I campaigned on that bill when it was passed. I wasn't in the legislature when it passed, but I was giving people forms to fill out and bring into this office. And so I thought it was a good idea, but I didn't realize that really I'm just going to quote from Senator Richard Bennett, a Republican who sponsored the repeal of this bill. He said the existing program, though popular, allowed wealthy homeowners to freeze their tax bills, even if they added to their homes or moved into a higher value home. The program allows homeowners to carry their frozen tax bills when they move, regardless of the taxable value of the new home. This was unsustainable. It was a real problem, and the approach needs to be for low and middle income Mainers. I think so. And I don't know what happened when this bill was repealed, but it was done by the Taxation Committee, and a new program came in that was voted in a bipartisan fashion. Several proposals were put forward. But we got through a bipartisan bill that improved the property tax fairness credit and something called the property tax deferral program. And this bill was sponsored by Republican Rick Bennett, and I appreciated that bill, and it had bipartisan support. So that's one part of the question. Can I go on?
Sure, yeah.
So I'm going to talk about the property tax fairness credit for older Mainers. It's not the best bill. It's an improvement, but it needs more work. The gentleman who talked about low middle income people still not being able to take advantage of that is mostly correct. But it was slow movement, which is what often happens. We replaced it with an expansion of the fairness credit. It's a proven relief program. The new law expands eligibility and increases the maximum benefit from $1,500 to $2,000 and ensures that folks won't see a reduction in benefits when they lose a spouse. That's the other change. And you can also backfile for up to 3 years to get the advantages that this new program, revised program, provides. The other things that's happened is revenue sharing's been improved. That was a program that was decimated under the LePage governments to pay for income tax cuts for the wealthy. That's what happened. And then we saw that revenue sharing go way down, and now it's back up again. We've also fully funded K-12 public education, 55%. We put money into an education rainy day fund. Now, these are all things that to help to keep our promises to municipalities. And finally, the homestead exemption, which is available to everybody, has been improved a little bit.
Thank you so much.
I feel like this bill, for one, I support the property tax stabilization program, I think it needs some tweaking. It seems like this bill may have been introduced as kind of a blanket, generic, let's cover as many people as we can in a short amount of time bill. But I feel like this bill really needed some follow-up surveying, some data research collected, even within the first 12 months, to see if this bill was actually targeting the appropriate demographic of what they were trying to achieve. And I think they might have found that if they had lowered that cap base, that they would have actually touched more on what they were trying to achieve. And I think I would probably be in favor of more bills like this moving forward to do just that. Let's not just roll them out, see what happens, and pull them back, so to speak, if they don't work right. Let's roll them out. Let's have some follow-up data. Let's do some research on them. Let's see if they're actually targeting these people that we're trying to help. And if we have to tweak them, then let's do that to make this program better. I think it's a great program, and I know what they were trying to do, but I just think that a little bit more data in education would have probably targeted a better demographic. So I would support, considering a reasonable cap, as that question asked. I think it's a great program.
Thank you so much. All right, next question. Number 7, do you agree or disagree with the Mills administration recommending that seniors consider using reverse mortgages in order to pay their real estate taxes? Do you have other options that would help senior citizens afford to stay in their homes? So this is, again, a couple of questions rolled into one from a resident that submitted it. Henry, you first.
Okay. I think the second part of the question, solutions and options that help seniors afford to stay in their homes. Part of that, I just talked about how some revisions, but I do agree that more needs to be done, and I'm willing to entertain anything. I'll talk a little bit more about property taxes as regards to education when we get to that part. I just do want to say, though, that it was not the Mills administration recommending this, but it was actually the mayor of South Portland who came up with this idea. And I did not support an idea at all that would create reverse mortgages.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Jason?
I look at this as if every case is going to be unique and different for every individual. Everybody's going to have a unique situation, whether they've lost a spouse, whether they've lost a job, whether their Social Security payments aren't enough to cover. I don't necessarily agree that reverse mortgage is the best option, but it might be an option for somebody versus somebody else. It's an option. I believe it's up to me as a representative to roll out as many possible tools I can to help as many individuals as I can in whatever hardships they're in. So if that means supporting reverse mortgages, if that means supporting home equity line of credits, I think I would support any option or tool that we can present to any unique scenario. I also feel like we're not doing a very good job communicating with our seniors. I feel like there's more options out there than what they realize. And I think it could be as simple as, when you reach that retiree age and you start applying for, financial aid, financial assistance, I feel like there should be a trigger somewhere at the state level which provides seniors or these individuals with an influx of information that just lays out every possible tax break, homestead exemption, like Henry had mentioned. I know there's a widowed, if you end up losing a spouse, I know there's a widow tax break exemption. But I think it's a matter of getting the information to the people who need the information so that they're aware that these options are out there for them. And I think that would do a lot and go a long way.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I agree, reverse mortgages as a blanket statement, not a good long or short-term idea for, a group of people, may be good for an individual. But I also love the comments, Jason, about the, just providing information. As a librarian, one of my favorite things to say is, I do not know, but I will find out and get back to you, which I learned a lot while I was knocking on doors too, is that was something that was helpful because I'm not going to stand there and make something up or lie. I don't know, but my job is to find out for you. And I think too, at the even the State House, we all have our different levels of expertise. We sit on different committees there. So you're going to be able to go back to the people that have the good resources. And I did that actually with property tax relief. I was visiting an area in Alfred, and I had some questions, and actually someone wrote a letter and mailed it to me, which was wonderful. And I said, yep, I don't have these. I went to some people I've been meeting, and what kind of things can I get back to them with? And I did, and they were just delighted. And I don't think it was terribly difficult, things, and maybe something can be left on the table at a library for information. But there is a lot of it is just that understanding of what is available and making sure that information is, and that's really my job in a nutshell. And, it gets a little stressful at times. Like it's all here, but it's how do you inform people about what is available?
Thank you. And then looking at this, 8 and 9 are the same questions, sort of kind of I think the topic got moved. So like the school imbalance on education due to funding was supposed to be the top line, point. But if you want to answer it the way it is, we can. Do you want to do it that way? Or
What's the question?
So the question is, Maine students rank close to the bottom on national rankings, 43rd in 2024, 19th in 2018. Yet funding required to support education increases every year, a heavy burden on taxpayers. And can anything be done to link the level of funding in results? For instance, 75 other classes are offered at other schools that cannot be offered at RSU 57 due to lack of space and lack of funding and lack of teachers, which leads to the question of why should teachers and bus drivers be paid more in other districts, giving those districts, I did a copy and paste, my apologies. Doesn't it give those districts an advantage over others? All these things create an imbalance in the educational system. Better teachers, better classes, no worries about making it to school, with buses actually always running. Better tech, better labs, more classes, and vocational opportunities. And our very own elementary schools, the music classroom is actually on a cart. They roll into one room where the students are taught. How do you fix these things without burdening the town that are overtaxed, where 70% of their taxes go to the schools? So it's a lot in that one.
See,
So
3 questions,
it's
so,
many questions in one. So mainly the disparity in education amongst all the different towns in Maine, due basically probably to taxes and income of
Okay.
families that live there.
yeah, I'm gonna, if you don't mind, if I may, I'd like to answer, there's 3 questions in there, could I answer?
Yes, please
So,
do.
because one of the questions was about linking the level of funding to classroom academic results. I think this was the
yeah.
question. And I look back to my time as a career teacher, and I loved academic results. I think what's happened is that COVID made a huge dent in academic results across the nation. It's also made a huge dent in student behavior and all the other things that teachers do. They don't just do academic results. We work on social, emotional understanding with kids. We work on their relationships with each other and adults. It's that second home that builds those things with kids. So I don't think schools should be punished, especially after COVID, by linking funding to academic results. I think what they need is help. I think what's needed is more resources, like tutoring and data-driven programs for reading, more resources. As a teacher, I also know that results don't tell the whole story of what teachers and staff are required to do every day in a school. The list doesn't get shorter, it just gets longer. And so schools are community centers for us. That's why I love teaching so much, because that's what I saw. And students learn positive relationship for peers and adults. So we need to support that by supporting our staff, by supporting our schools. So that's sort of the first part of the question. Should I let everybody answer
No,
separately?
I think if
Okay.
you go right ahead, that's fine. Let's go on to the next section.
Yeah, so schools imbalance due to funding, 75 other classes are offered at other schools. Doesn't that give their schools a district advantage over each other? Yes, it does. That's what I'm seeing, and it's really unfortunate, and we're continuing to see it. As a teacher for 25 years, I was a father of a teacher and a grandfather to kids attending 3 different school districts. I don't believe there should be any inequalities in teacher support or staff pay. Every child should be able to have the same great public education that each of our other kids in Maine are getting. That's a big goal, but it's important to look at. Because it's not fair. It's not fair to the people of our district here in Lyman, not having as much resources as where I worked in Wells, where we had a wonderful music program, a wonderful teacher. And to watch those things go away is horrible. So as a state senator, I did support a few things, mandating that we get that state funding up to 55%. And that's finally happened since 1996. It hasn't happened. That's a Maine law. Raising minimum pay for support staff to 125%. Bus drivers and other lunch and support staff, it's 115. Still not enough, but it's going to start taking place next year, and the state's going to pay for the first year, and then we'll tier it off to the state, and the districts will continue to share that for a few years. And there is a bill coming up to increase minimum starting teacher salaries for more than they are, the $40,000 a year. We need to attract teachers with better pay. So regarding the imbalances and how to fix them, one of the questions is, how do you fix these things, these educational imbalances, without burdening the towns that are already overtaxed, and as much as 70% of our taxes are going to the schools? So when I served on the education committee, I had to find out about essential programs and services, which is our funding formula. And it's broken in some ways. It needs a hard look. Times have really changed, and it needs some revisions to match those changing times. The Department of Education, I just learned a couple days ago, is conducting a study of essential programs and services. And that's our current funding formula. They're looking at issues relating about ability to pay, special education, transportation, and career and technical education. Some of these things I noticed in the SAB 57's budget, they've had to fund those outside of the EPS, which means you as taxpayers have to pay for them and don't get any help from the state. So hopefully these things will change. Another thing that's being worked on is the disadvantaged student metric. The way we figure out the free and reduced lunch, it doesn't work anymore because everybody gets free and reduced lunch now. So we need a better way to measure how many really low income and needy kids we have in the district so that the state can pay their fair share of that. The last thing I'll say, and it's probably not popular, but we have a bill coming up next year by Representative Brennan thinking about a 1% tax on hotels and the money, the tourist tax of 1%. I don't think it'll fly because those things usually don't, but it'll be dedicated to schools and to school construction, that 1%. It really helps. Other states use other formulas for funding schools, and I think we need to continue to do that. Utah, for instance, doesn't have property taxes paying for schools, which is interesting, but they also have a huge tourist tax, which we don't want to go there. It would be too much money. But I think there needs to be some compromise. I think we need to look at different ways to fund schools. And that's it. I think I pretty much said previously what everything else, but I really think we need to look at the EPS formula as a way to help us with taxes.
Thank you. That was a big question. There was
Yeah,
a lot of parts to
appreciate
it,
that.
and no, definitely extended time. So Jason, if you want to go next, and again, extended time. If
Yeah.
you want me to repeat some of the jumble, if you want to start out with maybe they're talking about the ranking, you want to start there, where they're ranked towards the bottom, and then go into funding.
Yeah, let's break that into two separate questions. So I'd like to get some more data as to just where the results are driven from. Because I think I agree with Henry that I think COVID probably is skewing the scale here in the last 4 years. I don't think it's giving us accurate data. I also like seeing my kids go through the school systems more recent than obviously I went through the school system. When my wife and I went to school, it seemed like it was a classroom style of learning. The teacher could show up, present the curriculum to the entire classroom. They'd go home, they'd all take the same tests, study the same. Now it seems like education is driven per student, which has to be obviously costing way more money in comparison. I'm not saying that it's a wrong way to teach. I'm just saying that it's gonna create higher costs for the school systems. And then to touch, I've never really appreciated putting a dollar amount on education. Back when I was on the school board in Arundel, we kind of had a unique situation when it came to budgetary numbers. Mildred L. Day was our local school, and that housed K through 5. But what we were finding in comparison to the area schools was 80% of our teachers had been there for like 15, 20, 25 years, and they were still teaching. So when we would compare our budget numbers to area schools that had newer teachers, our salary line would be way higher than the next school in line because we have teachers that are, they've been getting cost of living raises for 30 years. So I've never appreciated comparing school districts and then attaching a dollar amount to it. I agree wholeheartedly that the state doesn't do enough financially for school systems in general. And I would support any bill that comes our way to increase funding across the board with schools. I don't agree with one school having curriculums that create better learning environments versus another school, especially when it comes to resources and books, teacher salaries. I think they're probably one of the more underpaid professions in the country for what they do. So again, I just don't like attaching a dollar amount to the school systems. I think I touched on both of those questions. How to fix these things without burning the towns that are already overtaxed 70%. So one thing to understand is when a school rolls out their budget, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but 70 to 75% of that dollar amount is salaries and benefits. And that's essentially money that is untouchable, so to speak. That's going to teachers. That's going to their benefits. And then you factor in 10% going towards the cost for that school to operating costs. So that leaves you 20% of the total budget basically to facilitate a curriculum and provide the teachers with the proper tools to teach these kids. So I think these school systems got to get creative when it comes to funding. And I think Sanford is a great model. When they introduced that vocational school in Sanford, the number of students trying to get into that vocational program went through the roof tenfold in 5 years. So maybe it's a matter of investing a little bit of money into these smaller schools, or maybe it's every school in the state of Maine creates some sort of vocational program, because it seems to be an attraction to these kids. And then to take it one step further, you've got these vocational schools that, you know, adults could start using these at nighttime for adult education. And I think it might be a creative approach to use these schools a little bit more efficiently and maybe get a little bit more funding from the state. And I think that's what these districts need to start thinking about, is some creative approaches.
Okay. Yeah. So obviously a lot of it's covered, so I won't repeat, but the state, the state funding formula is really the biggest piece of it that I think needs to be reevaluated. But going back to the linking level of funding to results, and I wasn't exactly sure, you know, what results we were linking, but it did make me think about, like, purely an academic stance again, like how are we measuring what kids are doing? And and from the personal perspective, my daughter's high functioning autism, ADHD, and she has a one-on-one in the classroom. And she actually, at this point, like, we just need her to be able to socially interact with others in a meaningful way. And so for us, you know, she actually does well academically. That's just her side. But like her gain right now is really just learning how to speak to someone else, to exchange, to share. And she's getting better at that. She has a wonderful team that's working with her. And that it really would never be linked when you think of the typical, you know, achievement. What does achievement look like? It's so different for every person. And I already know she's not going to be that kind of typical learner in the classroom, and she's going to probably pursue some of those different career pathways, like career technical education. But I think that really, it's such a traditional line to think, you know, purely tying academics to education, because there's so much an individual child learns in different ways. And I just want to give a shout out to Waterbell Elementary, because they've done such a fantastic job with the resources they have, which are very restrained, and with with how much teachers are getting paid and for what they're doing. I mean, there's really no incentive with that, especially considering the larger societal things we're up against, such as, you know, shootings and challenges and, you know, people hovering over and trying to, you know, make decisions for them. And I think it's just very, you know, we're asking a whole lot for not giving them a lot back. And I just tying that kind of stuff in is just another level of stress. And thinking back to standardized testing and teaching to the test, it's just, we're going down the drain there.
Thank you. All right, we're on to question 10. The state of Maine with the state of Maine is encouraging or mandating LD 2003 that towns change their zoning ordinances to allow for denser and more affordable housing. However, the state is not providing towns with assistance and/or funding. They actually are doing some funding. Two people submitted this question, so one person didn't see that there is funding to efficiently accomplish these goals. In addition, the state does not appear to be assisting in managing the effects of increased housing and resident population on the public school system and other infrastructure like traffic, roads, etc. There does not appear to be any coordination with the state, counties, and the RSUs. As a result, it appears that each town is on its own to change their zoning ordinances to comply with the state mandates. What is your position on providing the state? Well, the state is providing some funding. So the state is providing, I think $10,000 was awarded to all towns in the state of Maine to help with the comprehensive plan changes that are to be made. For a little town like Lyman, it's $30,000 for us to even get help to get a plan changed, which would eat up a lot of that budget. So what is your position on more funding to assist in complying with the state mandate specifically? and more broadly with other state mandates that appear to be unfunded. Were you in favor of LD 2003? And did you think the $100,000 funding divided amongst all the towns and cities was going to be enough money? And we're starting off with, well, you went first, but Henry, if you're okay with going first,
I'm
yeah,
sure.
that's all right.
Sure.
So there's a
Well,
lot in that one too.
Yeah. I take no responsibility for 2003 because I wasn't there when it got voted in. I'm just kidding, but I wasn't there. I didn't vote it in, but I do support the intent of the bill, and I think it's a good one. I think if more funding is needed, we should try to make it happen because this is an important piece of legislation. It's one tool, but I think it's an important piece of legislation that can help municipalities deal with affordable housing crisis in our towns. And when I think about affordable housing crisis, I think about workforce coming from other states. And I think about our kids and our grandkids who certainly need a place to live. I would love it if I could have an accessory dwelling unit and afford to do that on my property. And maybe someday one of my kids could live there and take care of me. But I don't know if that's going to happen. But I think it solves some problems. It doesn't solve all our affordable housing problems, but it solves some problems. The fact that the state, you probably heard this figure, but the state needs 80,000 more new housing by 2030. Most of it's critical, most of it's critically in northern Maine, but we have the problems down here too. I do want to say that I sympathize with towns who are struggling and really working hard. I know Lyman's been working hard, and you've asked for an extension, and I think there's been extensions given to make these zoning laws compatible. If the lack of support in the way of expertise and funding is not there, then we passed this bill. The legislature passed this bill, and we need to make it happen if it's gonna help solve the problem.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're welcome.
Jason? Yes.
I feel LD 2003 is a giant step in the right direction. And I'm speaking from both a town selectman and a builder. In Arundel, we struggled with, here's a community that we wanted to keep the agricultural rural feel in Arundel, but yet we need more housing. LD 2003 assisted us in doing that. We put an accessory dwelling at my own residence, and it's worked great. It's given us a little extra income for one, so that's a bonus to homeowners. It's providing affordable housing for. Actually, we have a teacher living there now, so she loves it. There's some work to be done with LD 2003, though. That's another one of those blanket programs that was rolled out. Here you go, communities. Here's not enough money to do it, but let's see what you can do with it. The state needs to definitely kick in several more tens of thousands. Arundel's in the same boat Lyman is. We've expended our allotted funds, and we could use twice that to make this happen. But don't get me wrong, it's a step in the right direction. I think the focus probably should have been rolled out on communities that were strictly in like public sewer, public water communities. Because what we're finding is in private, like wastewater treatments and well systems, LD 2003 was created essentially to tie into existing systems and keep the cost burden down on adding housing, because the wells were there already, the septic and leach systems were there already. So why not add an accessory dwelling? There's $30,000-$40,000 you can save on a dwelling. That was all well and good, but the state didn't realize how many systems were of their lifespan and needed to be replaced. So there's a cost that they didn't expect. Well water, when you drill a well originally for a single family residence, you base it on however many bedrooms and bathrooms you have in that dwelling. Well, now LD 2003 is allowing you to add one, if not two more bedrooms, depending on your lot size. So now we're finding we might have to store the water inside the residence or drill the well deeper. So there's a few variables there that I think were overlooked, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And then was there a second part to that question?
That was it. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yes, so I agree with the going in the right direction, but I would just add that, and this is speaking a bit above my knowledge because I'm not as familiar with it, but an example I have is right now there's a building that the library owns. It's in our parking lot that we purchased recently in the last year, and the intent is to eventually make it part of library operations. But while we're waiting to do so, we can rent it out. Now we have the first floor is rented to a business that's been there for many years, and we have one tenant that's in the one of the two second floor apartments, and there's another unit that we aren't able to currently put someone in, and that's because we're caught up on code issues and other requirements. And I'm not saying we will want to do something that's not safe, but I think there needs to be a faster way for us to figure out how we can turn things over, because we have someone lined up. We're making it affordable housing for people in the area that had to move out of the residence they were in. So this is something, we're not making a profit really on this. We're just trying to turn it over and do some good for the community. And we're just stuck with this empty apartment because there's some things we just can't quite push through. And just to have more of that guidance, or just easier ways that we can get through code enforcement, or at least get to them to like where they're talking to the states. And I have the towns helping us. I have an architect that's been helping us, and it just gets gummed up. And so we just have an apartment sitting with the family waiting to get in, and that's frustrating.
Thank you. We're down to the last two questions. So this one, Jason, we'll be starting with you. What do you view as the best thing to come out of the State House to help the people of Maine this past year? And what's the worst thing?
So best, I'm going to put it into a two-part best. I'm going to go first session, second session, and they're connected. LD 616 was enacted on June 20th. And that was the first session, and that protected healthcare providers and professionals providing reproductive health care. And then my second tie to that would be the second session was LD 227. And that was safeguarding patients and providers of reproductive care. I am proud that Maine stepped up and took women's reproductive rights and put it forefront of the state. I think that's probably the best thing to come through the state in this last 131st session. This returned the right that women deserve, and can make the decision themselves and not be told what they're doing and when they can do it to their body. So that to me was the best. I don't really have a worst, but I wish there was more done to gun rights. I'm an avid hunter. I own guns, several different guns. I appreciate the fact that Mills signed the yellow flag law. It's definitely a step in the right direction. So I don't want to call it worse, but I just wish more had been done. And I think what I wanted more of was some sort of approach towards assault rifles and maybe magazine sizes. Again, I'm a hunter. I own guns. I have nothing against gun ownership. Everybody has their right to gun ownership. I just wish, especially given the Lewiston casualties, and it seems like every day you turn the news on, there's some sort of mass shooting or casualty somewhere. I wish Maine had taken the leap and done a little bit more on gun laws.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, you're next.
I'll read off of here since I wrote it down. So the best, I think, was LD 214. This is supplemental budget, and that invested about $20 million to incentivize development of low-income housing, and then and also help maintain the expanded income pension tax deduction for older Mainers. As far as the worst, I think of it from the smaller ones, but there's a few bills that were proposed in now I'm even thinking if it was last session or 2 sessions ago, I can't think. But the ones that centered on bad parental rights, so in education. So I'm thinking of LD 123, which was really in its essence trying to censor materials in the classroom and the school libraries. And one even sought to criminalize the educators for providing these materials to minors. That's one of the ones I mentioned before that I submitted testimony against, as well as I feel it was dozens and dozens of other people either submitted written testimony or they presented at the State House. And those, to see those come and be proposed is disheartening. And I think we're trying to, really enact the exact opposite, where we're trying to protect teachers and the rights of those to read what they'd like to read or view what they'd like to view. And that it really was taking up time is quite unfortunate.
Thank you. And Henry?
You've all spoken so well. Thank you both. I think the thing that I really thought about immediately was we were able to get in, and we needed it more, but we were able to get in $31 million in the budget for our first responders in Maine. And I thought that was really helpful. I know how hard they work. This young man right here is a good example. And then one more thing, providing free community college for all Maine residents. We continued that. That's what we need. There's so many parents and people I've talked to who are taking advantage of that. And they can't afford housing. They can't afford groceries. Many of us can't, but certainly college students can as well. We want to keep them in Maine if we can. So keep them in college here and support them all we can. So I like that. The worst thing was that we were not able to enshrine the right to reproductive freedom into the Maine Constitution. That would have taken an overwhelming majority, and we weren't able to get it. I will always believe that it shouldn't be any of my business, any of my damn business at all, to interfere in the healthcare decisions between a woman and her team of healthcare professionals. It's not a politician's decision to be in that room with them and make those very, very, very difficult decisions. So I'm hoping we can make that happen in the future.
Thank you so much. All right, final question before you have your closing statements. What do you see as the state's priorities over the next 4 years? Michelle?
So I think a lot of that goes back to the first question that we were asked. And so for me, a lot of that comes down to education and finding ways to, hire, retain teachers and, school staff and, having that consistency too, and not that turnover where we're finding, because of those differences between districts that, oh, well, this one offered me this much, I'm going from one school to the next. And I don't blame anyone for doing that, but how that works for, especially when you're at the bottom of that chain and you're just a different administrator, principal, assistant principal, different social worker, it just keeps happening. So for me, it's really following through with seeing how, what we could do to stabilize that a bit. And then also, as I mentioned personally before about my daughter, but there was an article you may have seen in the last Maine Sunday Telegram that highlighted behavioral health care in the state and the need for providers. And, no grand answers over here, certainly, but it's something that we very much need to pay attention to, and how this isn't just something that is, we need to recognize it as part of a major health crisis and figuring out how we're going to bring in those needed doctors. And I don't know if that's, working with UNE or University of Maine Orono to provide for these programs, but something needs to be done to get that health care here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, there's just so much more to be done. It's pretty overwhelming, but we need to continue to keep chipping away at this. But I came up with a few. Affordable housing, I think, is key to a thriving state and making our communities livable. Education, we need to attract good teachers. We need great school leaders as well, and we need sufficient resources to make our schools the very best they can be. This to me is so important. I think property taxes is what I hear a lot. We need to make them manageable so that we can keep seniors and working Mainers in their homes. Workforce training, I think, is really important. We need to continue to fund workforce programs that are ready to train for today's workers, but also for tomorrow's workforce needs. We need to really be paying attention to what are the kind of jobs that my grandchildren and our kids are going to be actually having when they grow up. And then finally, healthcare. How can we ensure affordable, quality healthcare for all Mainers? That would include, of course, what Michelle was talking about with behavioral healthcare. My work on the Health and Human Services Committee certainly tries to deal with this very difficult issue. And that's it.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Jason?
Henry, I feel like you just read off from my sheet.
Stole it from you.
I literally have affordable housing, seniors included.
Wait a minute, I didn't include seniors.
Strong schools, you and I agree on that. Affordable and accessible healthcare, you and I are on the same page on that one. I think we've all spoken tonight on a variety of issues that I wish the state would do more of, but affordable housing, and I emphasize that senior housing needs to be addressed too, not just affordable housing, senior housing. Affordable and accessible healthcare, that's a priority across the board. I think we do a pretty good job of it in Maine. We got some great hospitals. I go to a lot of them regularly. Lowering taxes. Everybody always asks me, well, how are you going to lower my taxes? And I always say that's an uphill battle. It doesn't always happen, but okay, that never happens. Yeah. But you were impressed with your flat taxes this year in Arundel, right?
You said it was going to happen. You thought you guys were working hard on it. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, we pride ourselves in Arundel to keep the taxes flat. We've done so for several years now. So yeah, I'm excited.
When you find my house and reevaluate.
Yeah.
You just know where I live yet.
So yeah, I'm excited to get to Augusta and make these things happen. Yeah.
Thank you. So now we're going to have, each of you will have 3 minutes to give a closing remarks. And Henry, we're going to start with
Thank
you.
you so much. Yeah, so I've been representing the people of this town, part of Lyman, for the first 2 years, but all of Lyman in both the Maine House and the Maine Senate for 4 years now. And when I think about the work I do in Augusta, I think about what I bring there. What are my core values that I bring there to try to get the work done? So I think about leadership that responds, responsive leadership that's inclusive of people, leadership that listens, and compassionate leaderships. And those are the 4 things: responsive, inclusive, compassionate, and listening. I knocked on a lot of doors in the last 4, 5, 6 years. And what I hear, especially nowadays from people more than anything, is there's far too much anger. There's far too much divisiveness. There's far too much fighting going on and nasty stuff going on between people. And people are sick of it. People are tired of it. And when I get up to Augusta, our work is to do less of that and understand that we represent everybody. It doesn't matter what party they're in. We represent all of you. And so the work we should do every day up there, we have to remember that. So I work hard to work on problems with my constituents and help when I'm able to do that. We don't always agree on issues. I try to be as honest as I can, but it's really important that I listen to you despite your different values than mine, despite whatever your point of view is. I take this with me to Augusta, where I listen and I work across the aisle. Then I roll up my sleeves and I get to work, so that my constituent back home, they have an equal chance to succeed, regardless of their circumstances or their party affiliation. My inclusive and my responsive leadership in Augusta is really important. As a chair of a committee, my goal is to guide legislation through the committee by making sure I'm listening to everybody, making sure that all people who have that 3 minutes to stand in front of me and testify, sometimes angrily, that they have that chance to voice their concerns in a respectful way. My record as ACF chair of the last 2 years has shown that. A lot of votes have come through, and a lot of good bills have come through because we've been working towards bipartisanship. I've decided to run for re-election because I've seen that through my hard work, my compromise, and my patience, I can get things done and help the people for my district. I know I'm sacrificing the time, and sometimes my own kids are asking me, what are you doing? Why are you running again, Dad? I know they want me to take care of their kids more. And I love it. I love the time I'm able to eke out with them. But I also do this work for them, for my kids, for my grandchildren. They're all Mainers. And they're the same as you and the same as me. They just want to live in a state that we can enjoy, that we can stay in, and we can afford to live in. So that's why I'm running for reelection. And of course, I hope you get your vote, but I hope more than anything you vote, because that's the best freedom we have. So thank you very much for your time. This is actually, to me, a great example of listening and inclusiveness, which we need more of. So thank you for your respect and kindness here today. And thank you so much for your
Thank
work.
you so much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Jason, you're next.
I really am looking for your vote this year, because I feel like my entire working career, I've been trained to solve problems while working with others to do so. Whether it's building, it's up to me to bring a team together to make the project come to completion. Hopefully on budget. It doesn't always work that way, but and we present the best possible product to the homeowner. I kind of look at this in my job representation as a select board, and I compare it with building. I'm there to serve the people and give them the best possible outcome that I can with the tools that I have. As a firefighter, we're trained. We have to be on our A game no matter what time of the day, no matter what the emergency is. I tie this into that. It's up to me to go to Augusta and again, firefighting, we work as a team to solve the problem. And I see people at their worst. When you call us, you're having a bad day. But it's up to us to remedy the situation, get you the help you need, take care of you, and move on. And I think when I get to Augusta, I can bring approaches from both my careers and make this happen for all the people in my district. I'm passionate about Maine. We have a beautiful state, and I don't think we ever have to question an attraction to Maine because we have so much to offer everybody. It's a matter of keeping people here, and when I mean people, I mean my two kids. I want to keep them here, but I honestly don't see how that's going to be possible if we don't start working together to get some of these problems under control. And I think I have a unique approach in discussions at the very least, but I'm hoping people up there listen to me and we can come together and create some creative solutions to these problems. And I thank you again for having me tonight. And it was great meeting everybody, new faces. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much. And Michelle?
Yeah, thank you. So I think first of all, it's been great to, as I mentioned before, I've been in Maine for about 12 years, and this has been it's been wonderful for my husband and I, and then we were very happy to have our children here. And this is really what's felt like home for us. Making our life here has been the best decision. At the time we had a choice between where to move. It was about 5 different locations. My husband's an air traffic controller at the Jetport. And there was a few other airports, and we're like, no, this place looks good. And then we settled, and we're like, no, this is exactly where we want to be. And now with my kids here, and really being able to go out and enjoy being in the woods, being out by the ocean, having some quiet where we are out here, and just enjoying all the aspects, the ability to get access to culture, and it's just been such a wonderful experience for me, and I really want to give back to that. And I know I have that experience across a variety of what I do at work, and I just want to reflect on a few other things that I've served in different capacities. But I have also served as the Maine State Rep to the New England Library Association. I've represented York and Cumberland counties as the Region 1 representative for the Maine State Library. And I've also been involved in several nonprofit agencies throughout the state where we basically do our meet and greets and presentations consistently, and we're continually sharing our ideas. And I don't think I'm supposed to share yet, it's early, but I was very honored. My board selected voted me for 40 under 40. So that will be revealed next week. So I'll be main biz 40 under, just eking it under there at 39. But I was very proud of that. Very proud of that because it really, my board's been very supportive. I've been there at my library for 9 years and they've really seen the work I've been able to do. I have a very supportive community. I think if you go to hopefully most anyone in Arundel and Kennebunk, our institution is known for having, a wonderful place to be greeted. We have an awesome staff and an awesome environment. So it's about creating culture. And I know I'm good at that. I'm good at facilitating. I'm good at keeping people together that may not always, want to be in the same room together. I will say, I mentioned I was a four generation household. We have 2 Republicans, 2 independents, and 2 Democrats registered in the district here. So we are, divided as far as the political parties go. But ultimately, in the end of the day, we have, the same goals. It's just how do we get to the end game together? And we're obviously we love each other. We're civil, but it really is about that. And talking about that division, that's another thing we do see knocking on the doors. People are not happy. That's a nice way to put it because it's just been one thing after the next, and we just want to be able to have a conversation and move on. And I really hope that I can bring that.
Thank you so much. Joe, did you want to close out the evening tonight? Number one, I want to thank you guys for letting me moderate.
Thank
You were a pleasure to speak to and ask questions to. And I'll look forward to the next night we have too. And I'll let Joe close out his night. I'm sure also anyone that didn't get to ask your questions, I'm sure you all would welcome emails or phone calls from them to get in touch with you.
Indeed.
And I'm sure you can hang around and talk to them a little bit we have another meeting coming right in after this one. So I'll let Joe wrap it up.
Thank you to those in the audience this evening. Thank you to all the participants. Special thanks to Michelle for facilitating the event. Again, the next candidates night is in the works. And as soon as we get a date set on that, we'll get that on the town website and we'll carry on once again with the same questions, same format.
Anybody that needs to reach me or talk to me, I'm right here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Start.